This is Gretchen Menn, the guitar player for Zepparella, and welcome to the Zepparella Learning Channel. This is the second video of a three-part series on the Led Zeppelin song Kashmir. In this video, I'll be talking about how I adapt a very densely textured song into a single guitar part. If you're just looking for how to play the riffs, that's in part 1 of this series, and in part 3 I'll be covering gear and structure and live considerations.
Studying the music of your heroes, whether it's Led Zeppelin or anyone else, informs your own musical vocabulary. Not only do you get the fun and education of playing music you love, there are deeper and more universal lessons to be gained along the way. Lessons that can make you a better, more well-rounded musician. My bandmates and I do these free videos as a way of sharing our love of Led Zeppelin and letting you in on what we've learned by studying the music and performing it live. We really hope this series may be helpful, educational, or interesting to others who revere the music as we do.
With Kashmir as the model, the main point I want to emphasize in this video is to encourage you to use your imagination, your creativity, and your personal aesthetic to consider adapting parts and letting your ears hear what they want to hear. It's very easy to take things at face value as a guitar player and say, well, this is the guitar part. I find that if I hear something, I'm missing something, I'll see if I can get away with playing it. So that's what this video is about, and I think that that lesson can be applied all over the place in your musical career and development. This video will be most helpful if you're already familiar with how to play Kashmir. So if you already know, let's dive in, and if you don't know the riffs yet, I suggest you learn them. You can check out the first video in this series where I talk you through that as well. So get familiar, and then let's get on with it. Led Zeppelin's version of the song incorporates all sorts of instrumentation, things that we don't have in Zepparella and we're not going to have. Not only did John Paul Jones switch over to keys, which occupy a huge range of sonic space, but they had, I went online to actually research, like, what exactly is the instrumentation? And people talk about ghost orchestras, and you can hear horn parts and stuff, but suffice it to say, we don't have those things in Zepparella. So I try to cover as much as I can that I miss within the recorded version by only playing the guitar lines. Now, you certainly can get away with just playing the guitar lines. They're great and they sound fantastic by themselves. If you find yourself missing certain parts, and that's what happened with me, there are ways that you can either play them or approximate them. So I often refer to what Jimmy Page did live as a starting place, and then I also just use my imagination and aesthetic and sometimes practicality to come up with a nice balance of alluding to other parts while not neglecting my guitar duties. And actually, there is a cool moment in the documentary It Might Get Loud where Jimmy actually shows the riff of Kashmir while also adding a line that I add as well. So we'll start with that one on the main guitar riff. As always, we don't have neat, clear sections within Zeppelin like verse, chorus, whatever. So the terminology I'm going to be using are the main riff, which is also the verse, chorus, and then what I'm calling the chorus outro. Those are the main parts where I do some adapting. So we have our main riff, right? Happening throughout the song, right? With that little variation that starts at the top, hanging longer on the A. But something happens right within the second verse, right? It's so memorable. If you're not already singing it, you certainly know, right? It's right after the vocal line, "Sounds caress my ears," and then we have this. It's like, how can you not play that, right? The way that I realize you can get away with it, one is that you only leave the main riff for a very brief time. The bass is still holding down that groove, and the drums are as well. And furthermore, our ears have been hearing that riff forever. And so when that part comes in, it kind of takes over, and our subconscious fills in that riff. The way that I play that then is we've got... I'm using the open D, and then I'm going from A, G sharp, sliding up to B, back down to A, G sharp, A, and then place where I do a little bit of adaptation, but it's less double duty than it is an approximation and a compromise. And it's in the chorus. Here, the guitar, like I said, really is in my mind, to be supporting the vocal. But here you have all sorts of lines in the keyboard and the other instrumentation that have this very exotic sound. If I were to actually try to play those lines, I feel like I would be kind of shirking my duties of, providing that nice bed of sound for Anna to sing over. So what I do there is I just add some upper voices. And you can do that by grabbing, by playing your chord, right? So here's your G, right? Usually I'll play the first couple of cycles just straight with the chords. And then you can start adding. You don't have a lot of places you can reach with your pinky, but you can still get it. You can add some notes, which, like I said, it's a compromise. It's not some great work of arranging genius, but at least it's adding something. It's adding some higher notes and at least alluding to the fact that there are other things going on. When you get to this one, you want to use that major third up from here, and you can even reach that if you feel like trying. So what I'm doing isn't carefully scripted. It's more that I'm just trying to add voices and to add texture above the guitar part. So there's something that happens in the outro, which is essentially the chorus section. And the reason that I feel that it is not just appropriate but important for me to hit this part is, one, it doesn't interfere with the vocals. The line happens when the vocal is resting, so you're not going to be colliding with them. You're not going to be playing unsupportively. And it's this line that I've transcribed, and though the harmonies are very dense, it's a whole arrangement, you can hit it and have it be very playable with octaves, and to me that still gives the main line that, at least for me, that I can sing. And we start right here at the 5th fret, so that's an octave, right? And then a whole step up, and then a half step up, and then a whole step, and then another whole step. And now we're going to switch to the A string, and technically the other A string now, but what would normally be your B string. And then a half step. I'm sorry, that's at the 7th fret, 8th fret, 10th, 12th, 14th. And that's sort of the main line. So the way that sounds is. That happens a couple of times, and there are little fills that happen after this. The first ending that I do, and it's really just based on what my ear picked up as the part that stood out to me. So after we get to the C sharp, then you're at the 14th fret of the high string, back to the 16th fret of the 2nd string, and then the 15th and 14th fret of your G string. So that's. So then you're back to C sharp, and then half step up to D, C sharp, B natural. So that sounds like. So that would be one variation that I do. And then the second one that I hear, same climb, but from the C sharp, and then B flat, or A sharp, and then, so the way this works is that when the vocal is in, I'm just playing the chords, being supportive, and then there's a moment where the vocal is not singing, and I can hit that line, the bass is holding it down, those chord changes are still there, I can play the line, and then once the vocal comes back in, I fall back into a supportive role. As always, I like to leave you with a writing suggestion should you choose to try it. And it's because I like writing a lot. I feel like it's not only good for deepening your understanding of new concepts, but you get music out of it. Sometimes I will approach something very casually, just as, oh, I just kind of need to get this concept in my mind. And sometimes you get something out of it. Sometimes you actually get songs out of it. So I encourage you to write. And the writing assignment, based on the takeaway here, I would say, is come up with a couple of different parts, maybe similar things, but things that you would initially conceive of as two different tracks of guitar, right? Like an overdub or something like that. And then see if you can join both of those into one guitar part that you can either where you can either play both parts, or where you can approximate the key parts of each one into something that's just a really cool and kind of compound line. And if you wanted to do this purely as an arrangement exercise, you could always work with a piece of music that jumped out to you as something where you thought, oh, maybe that'd be cool if I could try to cover both parts. So have at it, have fun. In the next video, I'll be talking about my gear, the sounds that I use, and the very elusive and often deceptively difficult structure of this song. The whole reason Zepparella has implemented a no one sits in on Kashmir with us policy. See you there.